Okay. So we're kind of getting into credit card. I guess, before I begin with credit, Ms. Ballard wanted us to make this announcement. Turn it out, be easier. It's going to be interesting this year to see how noise is, because we're all keeping this one door open. So that's going to spread. Okay. High school students. Ms. Ballard's words. Okay, so if it doesn't sound like me, that's why. High school students, we are so excited to have you back on campus. There are a few announcements I have concerning lunch, lockers, and bathrooms. Lunch. For lunch, seniors can sit outside, but there can only be 2 seniors at a picnic table. If all picnic tables are being used, then the other seniors can sit on the turf by the picnic table area. Please be mindful to sit 6 feet apart from one another. For freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, you will need to have 2 empty seats between each other in the cafeteria. Everyone must sit on one side of the cafeteria table facing the stage. Okay, so not facing the gym, look at the stage. When you're eating, your mask may be off. When you are finished eating, you need to put your mask back on. Right. As seniors, I guess, I don't think that a lot of people are going to be sitting outside today. It's a little wet, right? Okay, bathrooms. Please be mindful of how many are in the bathroom at one time. While in class, only one person can go to the restroom at a time. So that would be just out of feeling, which doesn't change my policy. My typical policy is one person out of class at a time. So yeah, that stays the same. And then lockers. We will have a locker schedule for you when you visit we will have a locker schedule for when you can visit your locker to avoid congregating in the hallways. Everyone can go to their lockers before school starts between 7:20 and 7:40. Seniors, after 4th period, so seniors, your time is after 4th period and after 6th period. Juniors, after 3rd period and after 5th period. Sophomores, after 2nd period and after 6th period. And freshmen, after 1st period and after 5th period. So they kind of staggered it a little bit. Please make sure to grab all that you need for your classes. If you have any questions, please stop by the high school office. Is this the first time you've heard this?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So senior, I want you to write down after 4th period and after 6th period, just to help you remember. Juniors, your junior period. After 3rd period and after 5th period. And Daniel, you're a freshman, right? Okay. After 1st period and after 5th period. So, like for freshmen, after 1st period, make sure you grab all the stuff that you need for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th period from your locker. Kind of reminds me of my days in high school, because I went to high school at Foster, high school out in Richmond Rosenberg, and the distance, it's like a quarter mile from one end of the school to the other. And we had 4 or 5 minutes in between classes. So if your locker was on one side, but your class was on the other, you essentially had to already have your stuff for that. There was no going back for it. Okay. So the way we'll be doing things this semester, or this 9 weeks, or for however long as we need to, GoPro is right there in the corner And after this class, sometime between, probably during lunch, I will be uploading this video up so that our online students can see what we did in class and can keep pace with us. Okay. Any questions? Good to go. All right. So I started off at the beginning asking kind of what has been y'all's experience with credit cards, or based on either what you have done or what you've seen your parents do.
See, I don't have a credit card, I have a debit card.
Okay.
So I've never used it.
But have you seen your mom use your credit card?
Yeah.
Okay. And she pays it off every month?
Mhm.
Good.
The only thing I've ever heard from my parents is basically to not use a credit card.
Okay. Yeah. That tends to be a lot of advice. Like Coach O, he in AQR, he'll go through some financial stuff as well. And his basic principle is no, don't use a credit card. I don't think he has one, right? Dave Ramsey follows the same type of thing. Don't use a credit card, ever. I don't follow that deal because I look at credit cards as being a tool. If you can use the credit card responsibly, then there's no danger in it. If you can't trust yourself to make smart decisions on purchases, stay away from credit cards. But if you can practice self-discipline, it's a nice little thing to have. One, for cashback credit cards, like I showed y'all Discover, they do a 5% rolling cashback. That's essentially kind of like getting a 5% discount on the things that you're purchasing. So a credit card can save you money, right? If you use it correctly. If you don't, it'll kill you. Kill your credit history. Okay? So, got, log back in, it logged me out due to inactivity. Over here. The only time you're gonna get charged interest on the money that you put on your credit card, or the purchases you put up there, is if you don't pay it off in full. If you don't pay it off in full when it is due, you will be charged interest, okay? If you pay it off in full when it's due, there's no interest. It's like you were able to borrow that money for a short period of time and pay it back. And you can actually come out a little bit ahead because the money that you're using to pay off the credit card, where has it been during that month? It's been in the bank. And if it's been in the bank in a savings account, has it been collecting interest for you? Yeah. So it's been, if you had used that money immediately to pay out or these purchases, there would have been, you'd have lost out on that interest. Now I'm talking like tiny percentages. It's not a huge amount. I'm gonna turn off the lights to better see the screen. Okay, so here's credit wise. This is one of my, so the credit cards also come with a credit monitoring. So you can monitor your credit, how you're doing. And you'll find there are 3 companies that do credit reporting. So we're gonna take a look at a couple and you'll see that the scores, they're for me. So the person's the same, but they are chained. They're not all equal. They're not the same, right? So this one has me at 792, and some things that impact my credit, it will fluctuate. In fact, if we were to look at, let's see, history. If we were to look at the history, you can see that over time, see, this is going back to the beginning of this year. So over time, it has fluctuated. Okay. And it will continue to fluctuate. But as long as there's not a massive change to my credit or to my credit score, I'm not too worried about those gentle fluctuations. Okay. Now I do want to make clear, even if you don't use a credit card, you have a credit score. Because the credit score is the bank is giving you a number. And this number reflects how likely you are to pay back money that if you were to borrow. Okay? You have a credit score. The thing is though, if you don't have if you've never used credit, does the bank really know how responsible you are? Yeah, right? They don't know how responsible you are if you've never used credit. So, but nonetheless, even though they don't know how responsible you are, you still have a score because it would be kind of like an average. What's the average likelihood of someone, and banks do use certain demographics, male, female, race, where you live, right, zip codes. They do use those demographics to kind of give you a score based on the average people around you. Okay. So even if you don't use one, you still have a credit score, and this is why it's important. Okay, so let's take a look at the home. What impacts your credit? Okay, first set of things, on-time payments. Okay, if you make on-time payments and you're consistent about it, that's a good thing. Okay, you start missing payments. 1 or 2 missed payments is not going to kill you. It's not great, but it's not going to kill you. But if you're consistent in missing, this is going to hurt you a lot. Okay, and so we were to click on that. It tells us a little bit. Okay. So it gives us an idea of what is excellent, good, average, or below average. So if out of 100 payments, you miss 2 out of 100, you're going to be rated as good. Okay. So think about like where that is. 2 payments. If you have 1 credit card or one loan that you're paying off each month, that's out of 100 months you missed 2 payments. If you had multiple, then it can be cut down, divided by however many. But that's a long time. Okay. If out of 100 payments you missed 10 or more, you're now below average, and banks are not gonna want to loan to you, and so your credit score is gonna go down, which means the interest rate that you will get charged on loans is gonna do what? Go up.
But this is for every 5 years?
Huh? Well, not 5 years. So let's see, 100 months.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I just use that 100 months as an example to kind of put this in percentages, right? So each month is a percentage. But this will stay. So let's see, over the past 4 years, here's an example. Past 4 years, you've made 200 payments on 10 different accounts. Okay. 2 of those payments relate, each of them on a different account. So that means out of 200 payments you made 198. So that would put you at 99% on time payment. Okay. And I don't know, let's see if it tells us when it adjusts. Yeah, it doesn't really tell us when it takes off. Like how long will it take you to build it back up? I will tell you though, it's a lot easier to destroy your credit than it is to build it. Right? You can destroy your credit within 3-month period. It will take you years to rebuild that credit. Okay, it's kind of like that. Like, is trust easier earned or lost? You trusting a friend, is it easier for them to earn that trust, or is it easier for them to lose that trust? lose, right? They do a couple things, all of a sudden, and then it's gonna be harder for them to build that trust back up. Banks are the same way here, okay? Now, what happens, let's say, life gets busy, right? Let's say your credit card due date is, or your loan date, due date is the 16th, you get paid the 15th, and because of life, you just forget. And then on the 17th, you're like, uh-oh, I forgot a payment. What you should do is immediately make that payment and then call your credit card company, okay? Credit card companies, like, they make money off of us. Even if you make all payments on time, they're making money when we use their cards. Because how many of y'all have noticed that some merchants will charge you an extra 1 to 2% if you pay with a credit card?
I've noticed you gotta pay like $5 or more stuff.
Yeah, which legally not correct, but they that's their store policy, so that's what they require. But it's a percentage of the purchase. So if you make $100 purchase on American Express or Visa, Visa's probably going to get $1 of that purchase, and that is paid by the store, not by you. Okay? And the reason that stores will do this is because, are you more likely to purchase things if you can put it on credit? Yeah, so stores are willing to make that, lose the 1% for the credit card fees, pay that fee, because you're more likely to make a purchase with them, okay? So credit card companies do not want to lose you as a customer, okay? Because the more you use their card.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you have a silver or dark gray Chevy, license plate DL8X633, your passenger window is open. If it starts to rain, your car can get flooded. So again, if you have a silver or gray Chevy DL8X633, your window is open.
That goes for you two at home. Make sure your windows are closed. That's one thing I haven't missed, the 3 o'clock announcements. Yeah, all right. Okay, but credit card companies don't want to lose you as a customer. So there have been times where life gets busy and I've missed a payment by a day. I call them up. First off, what automatically happens with that credit card? You miss a payment, and this applies for all loans. You miss a payment, what automatically happens? You get charged what?
Interest.
You get charged interest. What else do you get charged?
A late fee?
A late fee. You'll get charged a late fee of like $35 or $17, depends on the card. So you can call them and say, hey guys, I'm sorry, I missed it. Be upfront with them. And if you have a good history with that card, with that company, they will waive that fee and they will waive the interest. Especially if you can show them, I already paid it. I paid it today. I just forgot. Right? That's happened to me before. It's happened to my dad before. And we just call them up, tell them, honest mistake, and they'll waive it for us because they want to keep us as using their card. Okay? So on-time payments, that's huge, huge. Okay? In fact, one thing I really like about this this site is that it does the simulator, right? On-time payment simulator. So let's say I allow one account to become delinquent. A delinquent account means I stop paying it. Okay? So let's say I do one account delinquent for 30 days. So I forgot to pay it for 30 days. I'm 30 days late.
I don't see notifications or something?
No, because it's yours. Well, there's really no incentive for the credit card company to send you notifications. They want you to be responsible for it. They'll send you notifications up to the due date, but if you miss that due date, they're not going to constantly remind you, because at that time they're racking up fees, they're racking up interest, and so your debt with them is getting deeper. Okay, So I'm 30 days late. 85 point down. Now, if I saw an 85 point down on my credit score, I would freak out a little bit. That's a big drop, all right? Because now all of a sudden I'm from the excellent down to just above average. I do not want that drop. Let's say tough times and I become 60 days late. That's a pretty big drop there too. And 90 days late, just 3 months. Okay, I guess from 60 days to 90 days, they don't hurt you too much. But 112 point change for being 3 months late on a payment, that's gonna kill you. And if I go into really tough times and all of my accounts are 3 days late, I'm down to 500s. So not good. Okay. All right. The next, one of the other items that helps you really, this is a factor into your credit history. The longer history you have, the more reliable that history. Would y'all agree with that? Like, just in terms of science, like if you were studying something, the more data you collected, the more you could trust that data, right? So with credit, it's age of your oldest account. So my first credit card was Discover because it was zero late or zero annual fee, all these things. I got that when I was 18, 17. I think like either a senior or a senior in high school or a freshman in college. Okay. So I will not cancel that card because if I cancel that card, now the age of my oldest account falls, right? And I don't want that. If I can get it up to the 25, that would be the excellent. But the only way I can get it to the 25 is I have to wait. There's nothing I can do to speed that up. Okay, so age of the account, that's just time. Okay, and if I were to cancel my oldest card, I guess it wouldn't change. Probably because my next oldest card is also about like 14, so it's in that range of 8 to 24. Okay. Next up is credit used. Okay. So if you have a lot of credit available to you, either through loans or through credit cards, okay, and when y'all go off to college, how many of y'all are going to finance your college through some form of student debt? Take out a student loan. Okay, most people are. Most people are. That's going to be part of your credit that you've used. Because you're taking a student loan out, you'll start building credit at that point. Okay. But if this amount goes higher, if they see that you're using, like you have available to you, let's say $100,000 worth of credit, and you're using $25,000 of that, they're going to be like, whoa, why are you using so much? You're using 25% of all available credit to you. That worries a credit card company. That worries a bank. Okay, so the lower you can get your credit used, the better. Okay, so even if you have a credit card, when you go to college and you start using it, even if you can pay it off, use it sparingly. You don't want this to get really high. In fact, I don't like it having 3%. So in the next couple of months, it's going to be down to 1%. So because my pay period or my due dates right now are like stretching into October for due dates, and so within the end of September and October, that's going to be down to 1%.
In college, did you ever have a time where like it got really bad, or like you missed a lot of payments?
I did not. No. I had a credit card, and then I had so at UT they also give you like Viva Bucks, which is just a kind of a meal plan card that you would go in and use at shops or around campus. So I really didn't have the need I wasn't using the credit card a lot, maybe 1 or 2 purchases every month. And I think at some point when Netflix came out, signed up for the Netflix subscription, put that on the card, and so that was like $9 a month. And for sometimes that would be my only charge on that card. But it still showed that I was using it, and so I got credit, even though I was using it just a tiny bit. I got credit for using credit, and that helped my credit history. Right? And at $10 a month, you can easily pay that off, right? So as long as it's below 10%, that's considered excellent. I just don't like playing with it. I want to keep it as low as I can. Okay. And let's say I increased it. Let's say I bought something for $15,000. Right. It's gonna drop, not as bad as me losing or missing out on a payment, because it only dropped 53 points. But I still don't. I'd have to pay that down, and then it would come back up, and I just don't like that. Right? I want to keep it. Okay. The next one up, inquiries. How many people are looking at your credit? Now this one I'm average right now. That's because of the car purchase I made over the summer. But they were running my credit to see about interest rates on a car loan, how low I could get it. But over 2 years, I'm not going to be I don't plan on shopping for any type of loan or getting a loan in the next 2 years. So this should be dropping. As time goes by, these inquiries drop off my credit. So I believe down at the bottom it says every 2 years. Let's see, the past 2 years. Okay, credit tip. If you're apply for credit only when you need it. Don't do it just because you want to see how much you can get. If you're shopping around for credit accounts like a mortgage or an auto loan, try to keep your inquiries within a short period of time. Okay. So let's say I were to apply for 5 loans. It's going to take a little bit of a hit. Not as bad, but still. So this over time will also go down to 1 or 0 on it. Okay. But just use credit when, be purposeful with your credit. Don't just be lackadaisical with it. Okay. Okay, new accounts. Okay, so 3 new accounts have been opened under my name in the past 2 years. That's okay. Just take your time with credit. Don't go out thinking that you're going to build credit by getting all these accounts at once. That's going to do more harm than good. So go slow in building your credit. Okay, and then lastly is the available credit. So you know how I told you all about that, how they made an identity mistake on me for my American Express card? So my American Express card I got as a sophomore in college, and I was born in '87. My dad was born in 1953. We have the same initials, Joseph Daniel Greer, John Darby Greer. And so when they ran my credit history to give me an American Express card, part of the history that they looked at included some of my dad's credit history. Born in '87, but I had credit history going back to '83.
Is that a flaw in the system, or does that kind of go off of, the people you're around with?
No, that was a flaw in the system. That was something that the credit reporting agencies made a mistake. They saw JDG lived at the same address, so some of his credit history got put onto my account, looking at initials and address. And so because of that, as a college sophomore or freshman with $400 a month in income that was support from my parents, they gave me a credit card with a limit of $30,000. I still have that card because I'm also never going to be canceling this card, $30,000 credit limit on here.
Oh, they can't go back and change it?
No.
Okay.
No. But one of the things that helps me with is it puts my available credit above the 50,000 mark. Because at part of the $77,000 in credit that I have access to, 33,000 of it comes from American Express. All right. So I don't plan on getting rid of that card, because if I got rid of that card, my available credit would go from 77,000 down to about what's that? 44,000,
Oh, it has.
and then I'd be down here and good. So I wouldn't want to do that. Okay. But this is something else that, like, when you start off, when you get if you get your first credit card, most likely they're going to put you at a credit limit of about $1,000. Okay, most likely it'll be about 1,000, maybe 1,500, somewhere around that range. So you'll be below average, right? But as time goes on, you'll have to build that up. And if you show the credit card agencies or the banks, the loans companies, that you can make timely payments, then they're going to be willing to increase your credit with it. Okay, so you got to show them that you're responsible first, and then they'll increase it. Okay, and let's see what simulator I can do here. Well, it doesn't show me destroying any credit, so yeah. Okay. All right. So this, you can see from credit wise, this was my credit score, 792. If I were to go to Discover, here, you can see that my Discover credit score is a little bit different. Okay, it's within the same ballpark. You're not going to get the exact range. So as long as I stay within this ballpark, as long as you stay within a certain ballpark that you've set, don't worry if there's a difference. Like this is 808, the other was 792. Don't worry about that difference. Keep it trending up. Keep it going up to that. Okay. So, let's see, we covered everything I want to cover on credit cards. What is the way that credit cards charge interest? What do they look at? Do they look at the ending balance or the average daily balance? What do they look at?
It's like the average daily balance across the month.
Yeah, it's the average daily balance. All right. So if you put $500 on a credit card at the beginning of the month, first of the month, and you paid off $499 on the last day, but you still have that $1 left, they're going to charge you interest on that $1 based on the average daily. So your average daily in that example, like a 30-day month, would be like around $450 something. So that $1 is going to be charged interest as if it was $450. Okay, so pay it off completely. That average daily, that's going to hurt you. That can hurt people. Okay. All right. Let's see. Will credit card debt be dismissed with bankruptcy? Can it be dismissed with bankruptcy?
Yes.
It can.
It's only student loans.
It's only student loans that are zombie debt. Because bankruptcy is kind of like this legal determinant of where like your old financial self dies in bankruptcy. That's essentially kind of what is happening. Your old financial self is dying. You're coming out of bankruptcy. You're new. You don't have as much credit. You still have that credit history of the bankruptcy, and that will hurt your credit score. So you don't want to do that. But student loan debt will stay with you no matter what.
How do they resolve the other debt? Because, you know, that just can't disappear.
Well, in bankruptcy, it can.
Do they just come in and like take a bunch of your stuff, or?
They may, if it's secured debt,
Oh, yeah.
like cars and in house, then that's that's going to those. But let's say you have unsecured debt, they may try to garnish your wages, which means that before your employer pays you, the judicial system comes in and grabs some of your wages to pay down the debt, like it's forcibly taken out of your paycheck. But it determines how the judge in the bankruptcy court, what terms are agreed to in that court. It could be, depending on the debt, that they take some, or let's say you had $20,000 worth of unsecured debt before bankruptcy. You go into bankruptcy, you may reach a settlement where you only have to pay back $10,000 of that debt, which means that the people who loaned you that money, whether it be the credit card companies or the banks, do they get everything they lent to you?
No.
No. Which is where the risk comes in and why they charge interest on loans.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In fact, the housing crisis, great financial crisis of 2009, that's kind of what we saw with the banks. One of the reasons that the banks really tanked is because they had made all these mortgages out to people, and say you get a mortgage for $450,000, or let's go $400,000, and the house appreciates to $500,000. Is that good for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what happened in the mortgage crisis was they overbuilt the housing supply, and so that bubble burst, and your $500,000 house dropped to $300,000 value. Now, are you still going to pay a $400,000 loan on a home worth $300,000?
I guess not.
Yeah, a lot of people came to that conclusion. Why am I paying $400,000 for a $300,000 home? And so they handed the keys over to the bank and said, bye. They just kind of left the house to the bank. The bank allowed the bank to foreclose on it. And so now the bank has an asset they paid $400,000 for, but it's now valued at $300,000.
Oh, so there's $100,000 deficit. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where it took the hit.
Yeah, and so a bank can absorb one or two, or they can absorb a few of those type of hits, but in the housing crisis, there were thousands. And what happened, and this kind of gets further, the banks did not necessarily keep that debt. They had cut it up and sold it to other people. And so other people around the world, when this started happening with the housing, other people around the world felt the pain of it, right? And that's one of the things that has people concerned about right now. We're in a pandemic. A lot of companies, or a lot of governments are doing kind of a rent freeze, right? Or can't kick people out of their home, can't foreclose on people. Have y'all heard of that in the news?
Oh yeah, how they don't want to do taxes.
Yeah, well, not necessarily taxes, but let's say you had a mortgage to pay, or you were paying rent, and because of the pandemic, you lose your job. You don't have the income, and so what would normally happen is you would get kicked out. The landlord would then take that property and rent it out to someone else, right? Well, under this pandemic, government has come in and said, hey, we're not going to we don't want people to be kicked out. It's not good for the pandemic, because if people don't have a home to go to, can they quarantine?
Oh yeah.
No. Are they gonna be more spread, like, are they gonna help spread the disease if that, yeah, they will. So policy-wise, they did a good thing and said, hey, we're not letting you kick people out, and we're gonna kind of do a rent freeze. So you don't have to pay, people who are renting, if you've been impacted by the coronavirus, you don't have to pay rent for the next several months. Well, that's great for the person living in the home, right? But who is it bad for? The landlord. Do you think the landlord continues to have bills that they need to pay?
Yeah.
But now they don't have income coming in, they don't have rent coming in, and so they're struggling. And what may happen, we don't know yet, because some government assistance has just recently run out. But what may happen is that if the landlords and don't get the money they need to pay their rent, their banks are going to start to foreclose. And so we're going to see kind of a larger ripple effect. Yeah.
Question: if like when the economy gets back up, is all that debt just going to hit them there at once, and then they're going to see like they owe $50,000?
So, depending on the agreement that a person made with their bank, let's say mortgage forbearance, this is a term that was thrown out. Yes, it could all hit them at once. That it has not been forgiven. The due rent or the due mortgage payments have just been deferred. And so you don't have to pay for these 3 months, but in the 4th month you have to pay 4 months worth of rent, which people aren't going to be able to do, right?
And that's what that's happening during this pandemic right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And without kind of a government assistance to say we're going to forgive, and then the government has to pay the landlords. But are we in a lot of debt right now as a country?
Yeah.
Anybody know what the debt clock is?
22 trillion.
26. I believe it's gone up. At the beginning of this year, it was 23 trillion. Yeah.
Oh, that's nasty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. At the beginning, back in January and February, it was $23 trillion. We have increased our debt by about over $3 trillion in 1 year. All right. So the government, in fact, right now, federal debt to GDP ratio, we're now over 100% of our overall GDP. And that's a level that we haven't seen since World War II. But in World War II, who were we fighting?
Germany.
Germany. We were fighting the Nazis. So if we're going to have to increase our debt to fight the Nazis, I'd say that's money well spent, because they're Nazis. Let's all be like Indiana Jones and punch Nazis in the face, right? But here, we're not at war, but we are in a pandemic. We are in a recession. But we've been spending over decades to build up to here and be at World War II levels of debt.
What was the debt in the year 2000?
2000, let's see, I can find that out.
So how does the government pay off their debt? Like who, they pay it to themselves or something?
So, kind of, so, okay, well, 5.6 trillion in the year 2000. So the past 20 years, we've increased it by 21 trillion. So the government borrows money, okay, and they borrow it through issuing bonds, which we'll talk about later on when we look at investing, because you as investors could go out and purchase these bonds from the government, which is just an IOU, right? You're giving the government money now so that the government can pay their debts or their bills now, and in exchange, the government promises to pay you back in 10 years with interest. Essentially what a bond is. So the government's borrowing money like that to pay their debts now. So all of this debt will have interest payments each year. And if we were to look at US budget. Okay, so this was the beginning 2020 budget request. Obviously, it's changed, right? We went from 1.3 trillion. We're now well over $3-4 trillion in our budget. But let's see, where is it? Oh, this one is not showing it. I would think that this treasury one may be what I was looking for. It's the interest. Like, so part of our budget that we pay for each year is the interest on our debt. And if we don't have the money to pay, like, let's say we only bring in $1 trillion worth of revenue, we'll have to borrow the 300 billion, which means more debt. So, all right, guys,